Windows Admin Center 1910. Let's take a look at what's new in the current G8 release that came out around in November 2019. So if you look at the version number, you see it says 1910. So the 19 stands for the year 2019. The 10 stands for October. So this build was probably completed somewhere in October, but it's just recently been made available now. So today we'll take a look at some of the new features and capabilities that have been introduced in the current release, as well as take a look at some of the new hybrid cloud experiences and integrations that have also been added to the platform. Let's go ahead and get started. So first off, we'll just talk about some of the user experience updates. So if you've used Windows Admin Center in the past, you'll know that this user experience that it has now is a lot more graphical and visual than what was available in previous releases. So once you click add connection, you'll be presented with the screen as you see here, where you can add various different resources as far as Windows servers, Windows PCs, Windows Server clusters, as well as even Azure VMs, which is a new capability that has been added. I looked at, you may notice that in prior releases, there was a separate piece for Windows failover clusters and for hyper-converged clusters. There was two separate buttons to add those. So now they have integrated those into a single button, and then once you go and add, in the background, it'll determine if it's a failover cluster or a hyper-converged cluster, and then it'll put it into the correct category as you go through. So that's a kind of a way how they kind of simplify some of the things that was in the dashboard coming from previous releases. So because in a lot of cases, say if you selected a regular failover cluster, using the hyper-converge, it wouldn't work, or vice versa. You'll get kind of a message saying, hey, this is not the right one, or it wouldn't expose all the capabilities of the cluster in the right way. So the idea is to kind of simplify that experience here. So taking a look at some of the platform updates. So some of the things they've done in the background is that there's options to control what type of internet access the Windows Admin Center service should have itself. So since it does have that hybrid integration, so it will need some internet access if you're going to leverage some of those capabilities. And some of the actual display has now streams from the internet, so it's kind of always up to date. But if you're in a totally disconnected scenario, you can kind of disable those features so it doesn't actually try to reach out to the internet for those pieces. Another thing that has been added is that WinRM over HTTPS has been added. So that was a top user request where a lot of users may, in their environment, they may have implemented a policy where they only can do WinRM over HTTPS. And now Windows Admin Center actually supports that. It's actually an option where you're installing. You can, I think it's a checkbox. I'll have to go back and look. But when you're installing, you can say, hey, I want to use WinRM over HTTPS. And then any systems that you add, they would have to actually be configured to allow WinRM over HTTPS in order to work. There is some extra configurations and things you would have to do on the Windows Server itself in order to enable that scenario, since by default WinRM works over HTTP, and it does not encrypt the data that's going back and forth across the wire. It does not send like passwords across the wire, since it'll try to use Kerberos for authentication, so the password never shows up on the network stream, but the data itself that's going back and forth is not encrypted by default. So the WinRM over HTTPS helps close that loophole and give you a much more secure connection. But as I mentioned, it does require additional configuration on the managed system itself. It requires certificates. So it's beyond the scope of what I probably can talk about here, but that's just something that is available in the platform today. So let's talk about some of the core experience updates. So some of the core tools regarding like virtual machines have been enhanced and improved in this current release. So the importing and exporting of virtual machines capabilities have been improved. And if you use Hyper-V Manager in the past, we've been importing a VM and that VM already exists. Some of the options there is a little bit confusing, so you may do a little bit trial and error. The Windows Admin Center way tries to simplify that a little more. It'll make some decisions based on decisions you made, so you don't have, so it's not as possible to make the wrong choice and end up in an error where you have to start all the way over, which Hyper-V Manager is notorious for certain situations where it'll let you select certain things that are kind of incompatible with each other. It doesn't do a check, and then it'll go and try to do it, and then it'll fail. And then you have to start over, select those checks and things again, and go from there. Some other things, some VM tagging experience has been improved, where you can tag multiple systems all at once, and things like that. Searching through tags and things like that has been improved. Virtual machine live migration has been improved and enhanced here. You can virtual machines from server to server, from server to cluster, from cluster to server. So a lot of those back and forth scenarios, with Hyper-V Manager, for example, or even failover cluster, they're not exactly, you can't really do all of those. You have to do separate tools to do those various different scenarios. And now in Windows Admin Center, you can do all those server to server to server, server to cluster, cluster to server migrations natively within the tool. So which is it's a very nice new feature. And just overall, there's been a lot of new performance enhancements just across how long pages takes to load when you're looking at the virtual machines and things in the system. There's been some enhancement to the updates tool, so Windows Update capability. So if you use Windows Admin Center in the past, when you log in and try to do update, it would actually go and enumerate against either your WSUS or Windows Update itself and pull back whatever updates are available, but there's no choice to not install all of them. It would actually only install all or nothing. So now you have the capability to go and selectively choose the Windows updates you actually want to install. If you want to maybe test a few of them one by one, as opposed to deploying all available updates all at once. So it's another thing that was been a top user request. It was kind of a top user request for myself. That I'm happy to see that they've implemented that in the tool now. And then one other thing is that when you're looking at your virtual machines or physical systems, if they have a pending reboot, now there's a nice little banner that'll be available in the overview tools window that'll show you if that system has a pending reboot. And just in case you're not aware of it or just recently patched and it was missed in your reboot cycle, the tool will kind of alert you to that hey, something has happened on the system that requires a reboot for it to be fully applied, and then you can make the decision if you want to reboot then or not. All right, so the other thing we have is there's a brand new tool. So performance monitoring tool has been integrated into Windows Admin Center to allow you to dive into the various different performance counters that's available on the system. Has a really nice visual graph and things that's available here that you can look at. So it's really nice, neat, cool addition to the platform to allow you to do that across clusters as well as the regular systems on the environment. So it's really neat feature there. So you don't have to necessarily like RDP into the system, launch perfmon, and then look at the performance counters. You can now do a lot of that same investigative work as far as performance right there in your web browser. So if you want to read more about that, be sure to check out the link at the bottom, aka.ms/perfmon-blog. Has a lot of good details on there as they improve and enhance this feature. Be aware this is currently a preview feature, and I believe there are some restrictions as far as what OSs are supported right now, but I expect that to be improved and enhanced in the near future. So other things that have been added, there is a new packet monitor tool. This feature, I actually have not personally used it yet, since I just actually haven't had the time to check it out, but it's a new feature that has been added into the platform where it allows you to pretty much in near real time look at the packets and things that are crossing across the network. Today it does not support Windows Server 2019, but it does support like the latest semi-annual channel releases of Windows Server, such as Windows Server 1910 or Windows Server, I think 1903 may be supported. I haven't tested it, but I know definitely the 1910 release is currently supported. Or is it 1909? I always get the numbers mixed up between the server and the Windows 10 releases. So don't quote me on the version. I want to say it's 1910. I believe it aligns with the Windows Admin Center version, but I'll have to double check on that. Another preview feature that has been added is the capability to manage IIS directly from Windows Admin Center. So as you can see over time, more and more Windows Server's features and roles are being added to be managed directly in IIS. I mean directly in Windows Admin Center, so you don't actually have to use some of those legacy MMC snap-ins locally on the system to manage these services. So this is a very nice new capability that has been added into Windows Admin Center. So now let's talk a little bit about hybrid. When we talk about hybrid, we're talking about integrating your on-premise systems with various different services and capabilities that may be available in some cloud. And it's, in this case, the Azure cloud, the Microsoft's provided Azure services. So take a look at this. There's various new Azure Hybrid Services tool. So as you can see, once you log in, on the left-hand side, there will be an Azure Hybrid Services feature exposed there. And various services are available, such as Azure Backup, Azure File Sync, Azure Site Recovery, where in just a few clicks you can directly integrate with your Azure subscription that you have, and then also tie those on-premise systems into those services. So if you want to back up a particular VM on premise to the cloud, obviously you can do all these things manually. You can log to the Azure portal, create your own Azure Site Recovery Vault, associate that with your VM, download the associate software, and hook all the plumbing up yourself. This with Windows Admin Center makes a lot of those experiences a lot more easier, and it does a lot of those things in the background for you, kind of magically, as I like to say. So it's a lot of new features here. So again, integrating with Azure Monitor, integrating with the newly announced Azure Arc service, and the list goes on. Azure Update Management, and they're always going to be adding new things here as time go on, as new capabilities are lit up in Azure, and they have kind of a hybrid use where you can leverage an on-premise. You'll see more and more features come up here. And one other thing to point out is that in previous releases, the Azure Hybrid Services view was kind of hard-coded into the Windows Admin Center program. So now what they've done, the content that you see is actually streamed from an online feed. So you can always see the latest available services. So it does require internet access in order to see that, but obviously if you're doing a hybrid service, you require internet access. So that's not really much of a caveat or a problem for most people that are going to be doing any type of Azure hybrid service. Just remember your Windows Admin Center will require some internet access out to be able to pull the online feed back in. And one other thing I'll just point out here is that there's a new capability for creating Azure VNet using the Azure Network Adapter. So again, this is something you could do yourself manually. You can stand up a new virtual machine, install various different roles and services, go and create a VPN, create the VPN on the VPN or Azure Virtual Network Gateway on the Azure side, and then connect all the plumbing and everything up yourself. So that's still the capability, but the wizard, again, it simplifies that. So a lot of those details of things that you have to do yourself manually ordinarily, this will actually magically do them for you in the background. Once you have your Azure subscription associated with the right thing, it'll just kind of help you and guide you through doing those things automatically. So also in hybrid, there's a like I mentioned, there's a long slew of lists. I won't bore you with reading through all the details here, but there's a lot of capabilities. So storage migration services. So if you had a large file server that you're running out of storage on, you can kind of migrate that to another system, such as maybe a Azure VM running in the cloud, or using storage replica to migrate replica data up to Azure. So it's a lot of new capabilities and things for that hybrid scenario for on-premise and cloud. And for most customers and most users of this, they're gonna probably be in that hybrid state for quite some time. I mean, there are some newer companies that are like 100% in the cloud. They don't have any on-premise infrastructure, but I would say that scenario is far and few between. Even today, as more and more systems are moving to the cloud, but not everything is there, and I don't foresee everything ever being there. There's some data and certain customers they probably will never move certain assets to the cloud, and they would prefer to have really tight control of that data themselves, as opposed to having an infrastructure run by a cloud provider such as Azure or Google Cloud or AWS or Amazon's AWS. So there's just some things to keep in mind. And so let's go into hyper-converged infrastructure updates. So there's some capabilities where you can deploy Azure Stack HCI in Azure in Windows Admin Center. So Azure Stack HCI, you can think of it as a kind of a Azure that you run on your own servers in your own data center that can integrate with Azure itself as well. So the Windows Admin Center makes that deployment scenario a lot easier. It kind of walks you through it, like, hey, go ahead, go buy your 2 or more servers from your preferred vendor. So Dell, Lenovo, HP, Data On, etc. There's a whole lot of partners out there that provides Azure Stack HCI systems, and you can try to roll your own, but highly don't recommend it. So don't try to go and just use your old legacy servers and network hardware to try to roll your own Azure Stack HCI. You're probably not going to have a very good experience by doing that. It's definitely recommended to go and get certified hardware from some these vendors that have meticulously tested their Azure Stack hardware to be supported. It's supported by Microsoft, it's supported by the vendor, and it's going to be sure to actually work. And if things don't go well, you can get support for it, as opposed to if it's some like 4 or 5 year old hardware that you just have laying around and you're want to tinker with it. Yeah, that may be a good way to maybe learn and do things manually, but for anything in production or even really dev or UAT, don't really recommend it to go that route. So let's end that rant there. But I have seen some weird things where people try to just do weird things with old hardware, and it just doesn't really work very well, or they may run into weird problems that's not going to be supported. They call in, it's like, no, your hardware isn't certified, these scenarios have not been tested, they're not supported, so we can do best effort, but they're not going to really help you all that much in those scenarios. So moving on, so there's other improvements in hyper-converged clustering infrastructure. So I won't go through every single item here, but as you can see, there's a lot of improvements here as far as Windows Admin Center and managing these hyper-converged clusters at, I won't say at scale, but you kind of manage a hyper-converged cluster on a cluster by cluster basis with Windows Admin Center. But if you have a 4 node, 8 node, 16 node, or however many node cluster, that makes it even much more easier to manage, as opposed to with the legacy tools, like you're bouncing between Hyper-V Manager, you're bouncing over to Failover Cluster Manager, you may have some vendor provided tools, you may have some storage related tools, or you're bouncing between all these tools, and it can get confusing what exactly you need to hook up and what plumbing you need hooked up. Whereas here in Windows Admin Center, it kind of consolidates a lot of those capabilities all in one place, and you can manage it as well as monitor it in the case of hyper-converged clusters, all from Windows Admin Center. So you have those HCI clusters spinning up in your environment. Windows Admin Center should definitely be the tool of choice for managing it going forward, because a lot of the newer capabilities will only be available through Windows Admin Center. Like the underlying PowerShell pieces will be available in the OS, but that GUI based management of it will only be in Windows Admin Center, or at least that's even the direction that Microsoft appears to be going for those new capabilities. So let's talk a little bit about the ecosystem surrounding Windows Admin Center. So there's various different partners that have various different plugins that they've made available. Recently, Dell EMC have released a new Open Managed Integration extension a few months ago. And these work with the Azure Stack HCI solutions. It works with compliance and various different things that they have integrated there, where you can actually connect to your iDRAC, what they call it, or like the remote management interface, available on Dell hardware or server hardware. So and again, this sort of issue from having to bounce around to all these different tools is bringing all that experience directly into the Windows Admin Center portal. Because like Dell, they have installable software, right, that you can run locally on the system and leverage and things like that. But this allows you to bring a lot of that capability that you would normally have to run these separate tools or separate websites to get access to. You can see all that data directly here in the Windows Admin Center portal, which is pretty cool. And Dell isn't alone. HP Enterprise, which spun off from HP, larger company. So you recall a while back, HP Enterprise and HP, the company that produces like the printers and inks and things like that, they separate into separate companies. So HPE is that server division. And they also have this extension available. It's currently in preview for Windows Admin Center that gives you kind of some deep insights into the hardware within your clusters, and looking at things like the storage, the network switches, and things like that, virtual machines that's running on top of there, looking at some performance data, update management, a lot of neat configurations and features there. And as I mentioned, there's, if you see over here on the right, there are several other vendors that have also recently introduced integrations or extensions to Windows Admin Centers to bring their server management capabilities into the portal. So that's just another nice little thing there. So how do you get started? You know all about a lot of these new features that's available in Windows Admin Center. You can go and get started today. Windows Admin Center is a free download. As long as you're licensed for Windows Server, right? You can go and just download Windows Admin Center, install it on either your desktop or a gateway server for multiple users to use, and get going. You can go download today at Microsoft.com/Windows Admin Center. Go and download the Windows 1910 release, and go ahead and start checking out some of these new features, and let me know what you think in the comments. So thanks for watching, and have any questions, concerns, or anything, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I'll respond as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. See you next time.